Hello and welcome to the Grove Church Podcast. I'm Charlie Lofton, the lead pastor there, and we are so glad that you're joining us. Whether you are a member and you're just catching up on a sermon that you missed, or you're someone who's brand new, we are really glad that you are joining us. And if you are new in some way, and I know that a lot of people will do that, will listen to sermons first before they visit, I want you to know that we would love to meet you at any point. You can join us live in our services on Sunday, 9 and 10:30, or our streaming service at 10:30. Either way, we would love to be able to get to know you. And regardless of why you are here listening to this sermon today, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, good morning. Hey, if you're new, I'm Charlie, the lead pastor here, and really glad you are worshiping with us today. Really glad all of you are here, online or in person. Really glad that you're here with us. It's been a few weeks since I've been able to be with you. It's been kind of a wild, kind of crazy few weeks, kind of a lot of different stuff going on, some trips, just kind of some things going on. So it's been kind of wild. It's great to be back. One of the things that's happened, I'll kind of get you in on this. If you follow us on social media, Facebook or whatever, you're friends with us, you might, some of you already know this. We are in the process of selling our home, and we're not moving away. We are just moving someplace different in Fayetteville. And for some of you, this is be new information to you, so I'll just kind of keep it, catch everybody up. The last house we tried to sell was the house we had before we moved here 14 years ago. It only took us 9.5 years to sell that house. It seems like this time we're gonna come in under that. We've got it under contract now. But even still, for us, it can't be not complicated. We had it on the market, had a contract on it. Everything was fine. 2 weeks later, they just canceled the contract for no reason. They said, why we asked our realtor why they canceled. So because houses are expensive right now. I'm like, that was true 2 weeks ago. Well, interest rates are also bad. That still was true. Anyway, so we're in the process of moving. We're gonna move here in about 3.5 weeks. And one of the main reasons why we are doing this is because as of this week, we have my wife's mom, my mother-in-law, awesome woman, Sharon Jones, is moving in with us. Got to go pick her up this week and bring her in. She's moved in with us, and we are getting a house together where we can all live. Has a really good space for her. And so it's kind of a plan that we've been kind of working on for a while, and now it's like kind of come to fruition over here for the next few weeks. And it's been really interesting when you're talking to people and you say to them, hey, we've got this plan and we're moving. And like, why are you doing that? We're moving because we're moving my mother-in-law in with us. It is interesting the range of responses that we'll get to that. You guys are being more cautious and reacting to it right now because she's in the room. But some of you got jokes. Some of you just got jokes, right? Jokes about how funny that is. And I get it. They've made movies, sitcoms, stand-up routines based on what can be a precarious relationship that you have with your mother-in-law. Others just kind of just look at me with just stunned disbelief, as if there is a world where people do this, right? And some of you act like that this is some sort of heroic thing that we're doing. But the reality of it is, it just seems normal and great for us. And it's because if you think that there would be anything negative about it, it's because you don't know Sharon. And we were talking about this. I can't remember, and I've known Sharon for like almost 35 years now. I can't think of a time where I've ever even been mad at her. We have a wonderful and great relationship, and we are really excited about this next season. So we're going to be moving here in a few weeks, and I bring all this up not only to keep you up to date, but by just an incredible coincidence, wink, wink, and sermon series that are planned months in advance, and the particular sermons and who's preaching are planned months in advance. It just so happens in our journey through the 10 Commandments that today we are talking about honor your father and your mother. And so as we've been kind of in this journey, kind of just thinking about what we want to do here with our mom and kind of what this next season of life looks like, this has been on my mind a lot, just even over the last few months. And especially then over the last week or so, as I've been kind of preparing for this message, kind of what does that look like? And it's really important to me, not only for this season of life, but just also, I was doing the math on this, and Heidi is going to absolutely hate. She hates when I say stuff like this. But we have now been parents longer than we've not been parents, as far as how old we are, right? 52 years old, 26-year-old daughter, right? You have to be a great math major to figure all that out. And so now we've got adult children, and we've got a relationship that we're navigating with adult children. At the same time, we've got parents that we're still interacting with. It's an important set of relationships. And honestly, I think that it is one that we struggle with, just in general, of how do adults interact and what does it mean to kind of honor your parents? Because it's not like that this is suddenly in the list of 10 commandments, there's 9 for adults and we just kind of threw one in there for kids. This is not a command for kids. This is a command for all of us. So let's just, before we get too far into it, let's just go back. Let's just look at the particular commandment, make sure we are completely aware. Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. It's interesting, and this kind of is referenced in the New Testament, looking back on this, that this is kind of really the first commandment that kind of has a promise attached to it. Hey, honor your parents, and the result will be that you're going to have a long, prosperous time in the land that I'm giving you. And so it is the only one of these sins that has that sort of promise connected to it, which is significant. And we're going to talk a little bit more towards the end, kind of what does God mean by that and why that's important. But I just kind of want to make sure we note it right now. And just make sure we do a little language study here to kind of understand this word honor is the Hebrew word there is kavod, and what it means is to give something more weight. So if I were to say, hey, this is kind of a weighty topic that we're talking about today, we all know what that means. There's a heaviness, there's an importance to it. And so honor in this sense means to give more weight to. So a good illustration is you've got, what makes a bag of gold valuable, right? The weight of it. And so to add weight, to make something heavier, to give it honor. That is the idea of this word, and that's what we're supposed to do. And I think that's important because, again, as we think about the context in which they heard this, where they were coming from and where they're going. So I'm going to make sure we all understand that. I'm going to say this, and this kind of adds to what Mark was saying last week. I think it is important for us to know and understand that we are more than our productivity. Mark mentioned this last week. I got to listen to his message this week, and it was really cool to hear a guy speak on a rest cycle from a guy who has just recently come off a sabbatical and just kind of processing all of that. It was a great message. If you did not get to hear it, I encourage you to go back and listen to it. And he mentioned this, that of the 10 commandments, there are only 2 that are positive commands. And by a positive command, it is encouraging you to do something as opposed to telling you to not do something. Starting next week, we're going to start jumping into some of the most famous do nots. Do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not lie. The big do nots. These are positive commands. And these could have easily, keeping the Sabbath, honor your parents. They could have easily been framed that way. Do not work on the Sabbath. That's what I'm telling you not to do. Do not disrespect your parents. There's lots of ways they could have constructed it, but they made them both positive commands, like something that you want to honor, to keep. It's important to do. And I think the connection that they both have, and the reason why I believe this is actually pretty closely connected to the Sabbath, because Mark talked about this, that you're more than what you do. When you're a slave, your value is only in your productivity and what you can accomplish, what you do. And they don't get days off. There's no Sabbath rest for a slave. It's like you need to rest. And in addition, you need to honor your parents. And the connection there is when you are a slave, you have a certain number of productive years. But if your value is only found as a slave, then when you are too old to make the bricks, when you're too old to build the thing, when you're too old to do the tasks that are required of you, what value do you have as a slave? You have significantly diminished value to no value at all. And so what God is saying is like, hey, you're coming from this and you're headed here. You need to leave that behind. Because even still, there's a temptation in the culture that they were living in. Mostly, the food that you eat, you raised either crops or animals. And so in order to survive, you had to provide for yourself. And so your value is found in your productivity. What can you grow? What can you raise? What can you do for your family? And what do you consider someone who no longer has the ability to do that? Whether their value is not determined. No one's value is determined by productivity. No one's is. And especially your parents, he's saying. And if you think about the weight analogy, okay, yeah, maybe not everything is determined by productivity, but like you got a good job and you're making good money and you're accomplishing a lot, right? You've got value. And then you retire. I'm not saying you don't have any value. You just take a few of the coins out. And you're just a little less valuable. Well, God is saying the opposite. Okay, there was a time when they were productive and they had a certain amount of value because of that. Now in this season, you add honor, you add weight, you add value. They are worthy of more honor and weight and respect. And it is not tied to your ability to produce. Because there was a very clear and obvious application of this for them. When your parents get old and cannot take care of themselves, you need to financially provide for them. Bring them into your home, or if you're living in kind of a little patriarchal group, make sure that they are still well taken care of, even though they can't do the work anymore. It's a very easy, straightforward application. For us, we live in a very different world, a very different society where we depend on retirement savings, and there are government programs and all sorts of things to provide financially. But again, the command is broader than take care of your aging parent if they can't provide for themselves. It is significantly broader than give them honor, give them weight. Make sure that they understand that in this season of their life, they have greater value for you, as opposed to the natural order of things can be, the older you get, the less value that you have. And so we are more than our productivity, but even still, even if you think about it in terms of productivity, we are more than our productivity, but we honor them. We honor them for what they've done. Just think about it. Maybe they're not as productive as they were, but just think about those years of productivity that they had. And again, we're going to talk about this in a little bit. Everybody's situation is different. But for the overwhelming majority of us, everything that I ever needed was provided for me by them when I could not provide for myself. And they helped launch me into adulthood and helped me become someone that could take care of myself. They did all of this, and in reality, it cost me very, very little. Again, when you're a child, when you're a teenager, having to help with dishes and cleaning your room, it seems like a great cost. All you're doing is providing me with shelter and food forever. And now you're asking me to clean my room, and I've got to help with the dishes. I got to fold my own laundry. At that time, it feels like it's not free, but at a minimum, the trade-off is inequitable. What they are giving versus what you have to give. And there's a sense in which we need to honor that. Now, I want to be very, very clear about something here. because I don't want to overstate this and you hear something that I'm not saying. To honor your parents for what they have done is not the same as you owe them something. And there's a gospel parallel here that I want to make here in just a second. Because again, this is very important to me. Because not only as someone who is in a relationship with our parents, but also becoming a parent of adults, what I did for my kids, they don't owe me anything. They don't owe me anything. They don't have to pay me back in any tangible or intangible way for what we did for them. It was a privilege, and to use the word, it was an honor. It has been an honor. It is still an honor to be able to be their parents. They don't owe me anything. And I don't owe any debt. I'm not paying my parents back. We're not paying Heidi's mom back. We're not paying anyone back. So we don't owe them anything in the sense of a debt to be paid back. But honor is owed. There's a difference between, but I don't owe you a debt, but you are worthy of this. And again, the gospel parallel is that everything that we have from God has given to us. It is given to us freely, including what Jesus Christ did for us on the cross. It was a free gift that we did not have to earn to receive, and we do not have to pay him back. The service that we offer to God through our tithes, through our finances, through our service, through our devotion, none of this is to repay back a debt that we owe to God. We don't owe God anything for what he has done for us. But he is worthy. He is owed in that sense. He is worthy of it. He is worthy of the honor, so we give it to him. And there's a sense in which the same parallel exists with our parents. We're not paying anyone back. And again, knowing enough of you, I know that there are some senses of you where you feel like maybe even some of your parents have verbalized this to you, that you owe them something. And we say this half joking sometimes. You know, even if as anybody whose parents in the room has probably said something akin to, I changed your diapers, therefore. You know, if I was there when you couldn't change your own diaper, get yourself out of your own filth, you owe me this, right? You say that in a moment of frustration, right? But we don't mean it. But some of us may be living under that. Maybe because our parents have verbalized it. You owe me this. I think that can be, that's problematic. We don't owe them because we owe a debt. We owe them because it is an honor that they are worthy of. And even as I'm saying this, there are some of you that are just like, bro, that is so simplistic. That is so naive. You do not understand the situation. You don't understand what my parents did not do a great job of providing for me. There is no real sense in which they launched me into adulthood. They have caused me more headaches. Actually, I would say on the whole, more harm has been done. You don't understand what the nature of the relationship is like now. You don't understand just kind of the dynamic and the hurt that this relationship caused. You can't just say things like this. That they're worthy of honor. You don't understand. But the reality is I do understand because I have had these conversations and I've been around a long time and I'm completely aware of this. And I'll just put it out there. I understand. We honor them. It is what God calls us to do, to honor them for what they've done. But sometimes sometimes it's complicated. Sometimes the nature of the relationships that we have are complicated. There is a complex matrix out there, and I just think about this all the time. Like we want there to be simple answers to the relationships that we're supposed to have and the things that we're supposed to do. Okay, if you've got parents and you want to honor them, then you should do these 3 things. But it's not as simple as that because it depends on a whole lot of things. Which of your parents are we talking about? How old are you? How old are they? What is their financial situation? What is their physical situation? What is the nature of your relationship in the past? What is the nature of your relationship in the present? There are all sorts of ways that this gets complicated. But it is important that even in all of the complication, we can find a way. to bring honor if we choose to. If we decide that this is something that is on God's heart, that this is something of great value, we can find a way to bring honor. I get it. Every situation is different. Every one of our situations is different. And each of the situations that you have with each of the parents that are involved is different. And so as I've talked about this, hey, we've got Sharon. She's coming in to move in with us. And people, the natural question is like, would you do this with everybody? And again, it's all different. The best possible way for me to honor my dad would be to never ask him to do this. I mean, he would be mortified at the idea of it. And it would not bring honor to him to have him to do this. And I believe my father-in-law, who has recently passed away, it was the same with him. It would not have been honoring to him. And so at the time, in the last couple of years of his life, as he was getting sick, there were different ways we were able to honor him through that process. And to show him the worth and the value and the love that we had for him. But then the most obviously parallels are, what about your mom? Would you move your mom in? You know who else asked that question? My mom. And you know who's watching on video at some point during the course of the next 3 days? Same mom. She's right there. Maybe not right now, but she will be. It's complicated. That's what I told her. I was like, Mom, I can't even begin to answer that question. What is the situation? Where are you? Where are we? What's going on with you? Here's the thing that I can tell you, Mom, is that whenever you find yourself in a situation where something needs to be done, right now, you and Dad are doing great. You and Dad are doing great. There's going to come a point where something needs to be done. My heart is this: whatever is best for you and best for us is the thing that we will do, and we will make this decision together. Because she deserves that honor. Every situation and the specifics of it are going to be different, but the need for honor is not. So the complexity of the relationship, the age, the situation, everything is different in the how, but not in the core of what it is that God has called us to, which is to bring honor. Let me just give you just a handful of just kind of little tips. Again, I can't come up with this. It would not be logistically possible in a reasonable amount of time to talk about every situation that all of us could possibly be in with all of our different parents about what to do. There are a couple of different things, a couple of pieces of advice though, that I think that are broad enough that I feel like that maybe could be helpful. And the first one, this is something that Heidi and I have practiced for a very long time, and we encourage people who are married to think like this every time we get a chance to talk to them. There are not my parents and Heidi's parents. There are our parents. There's just our parents. We have parents. Because when you talk about my parents versus your parents, then all of a sudden things just get weird and protective. Why did your mom say that to me? I don't know. Why did your dad say this to me? And now you've got to defend this tribe and I've got to defend this tribe. Or conversely, it's like, I'm sorry, my family is doing this to you. And so there becomes a weirdness. There's not us and them, my tribe, your tribe. There's just us, and we have a set of parents. We have parents. And some of you come from homes where you've got step parents. And so if I were to say, all the time, 1, 2, 3, 4 parents or whatever, some of you are like, it feels like sometimes I got like 6 or 7. But regardless of the situation, if you are married, we have parents. And to be a team and figuring out what is the best way to have relationships in all of these different seasons. Also, I talked about some things that are complicated and some difficult, where really my engagement into this relationship only does me harm, and it really is not helping them either. Like sometimes these relationships are so broken that it is not healthy for any of us to be engaged with each other. And so some of us are in those kinds of relationships. Some of us think that we're in those kinds of relationships, but really aren't. You're just having a hard time navigating relationships. But then there are some of you that are accepting as normal something that is in fact harmful. I think sometimes we don't have a great picture because we are only in it. I only know these people as my parents. And it seems normal to me, and other people look at it and go, that's not cool what's happening right there. Or you've decided something's not cool, and everybody's like, if that were my situation with my parents, I'd be killing it. We don't know. Sometimes we just don't know. So I think that's why it is important for us if we feel like we've got a complicated relationship and we're not sure how to honor and love our parents well. I would encourage you to talk to the people around you that you trust. Here is the nature of this relationship. What do you think about it? What do you think is the best way for me to move forward? Because sometimes I think we are not, this is very true, we are not the best judges of our own parents. And similarly, we're not the best evaluators of our in-laws a lot of times either. And sometimes we just need a little bit of extra help and advice. Here's what I think's going on. Here's how I'm thinking about it. What do you think about that? Because this command has weight. It has significance. It has importance. How we do it, it matters. But we're so emotionally tied into it, we don't know what to do sometimes. And we're just kind of flailing. And that's why we need each other. And lastly, I'll say this, as far as kind of like just little pieces of practical advice. Regardless of the nature of the relationship and how close you live to them, how close you are to them, how long I feel like I can be with them, if at all, regardless of all of that, at a bare minimum, you can pray peace and life into them. You can tell the God of the universe that you value them and that you want to honor them at a minimum through your prayer life. By just as a way of thanking God for the role that they did have, and whatever thing that is going on, pray for healing for it. And that is not some small level churchy kind of cop-out. Well, if you can't do anything else, you might as well just pray. Praying healing and life into difficult situations. A parent, a grandparent that is in some sort of difficult distress, praying that the God of the universe will step into that situation and bring healing. That's honor. That is a way to bring honor. Because regardless of all of this, right, Jesus brings this up, and we'll finish with this here in Matthew chapter 15. He brings up this commandment when he's interacting with the Pharisees. They're saying Jesus isn't following Sabbath rules right. He's calling them out on their hypocrisy. Matthew 15:3, it says, Jesus says this, "Why do you break the commandment of God for the sake of your tradition? For God said, honor your father and mother, and anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. But you say that if anyone declares that what they might have been used to help their father or mother is, quote, devoted to God, they are not to honor their father or mother with it. Thus you nullify the word of God for the sake of your tradition." Now, there's any number of areas of hypocrisy that Jesus could have called out, but he calls them out here on the way that they're doing this significant commandment of one of the 10 commandments. Because they had this tradition, the way kind of this worked, there's what we would call the Pentateuch or the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, has all these commandments in it. But then they had also something called the Talmud. So let's just say that as a book, the first 5 books of the Bible will be about this thick. And then they also had an interpretation of it that's this. You're supposed to keep the Sabbath. Here are 175 rules on what you can do, and here's 330 things you can't do. Like very, very, very specific. And so they had all these rules that kind of interpreted. And one of the things was on honor your parents is that when it was time for you to financially provide for your family, your aging parents, you could declare that money, that extra money that you have, you could declare it korban, which meant it is a gift for God. I'm sorry, I can't take care of you financially. That money is set aside for God, which on the surface sounds good. except you don't have to give it to God right away. It's just kind of set aside. I've kind of got it in a special account, and it's God's, so I can't help you. And then when your aging parents pass away, you're like, never mind. And so now you've got the money back again. And they crafted this loophole to get them out of the law, which like, man, send them to Congress because this is what they do, right? They pass all these laws and then make all the loopholes to make sure that the people that they matter to them don't have to follow them. And this is Jesus says, like, what are you doing? It's a very clear thing that God has called you to do. And you're making up rules to get you out of it. Jesus could have picked any number of things to call them out on hypocrisy, but he chose this one. And I believe that he chose this one because I believe this command is close. It is very close to the heart of God. It's very close to his heart. It's the thing that he said. You do this, I'm going to prosper you in the land that you're in. And here we've got Jesus. Of all the examples he could have used, he used this one. It matters to God. And you'll see it all throughout the Old Testament. He's like, man, you need to make sure you're taking care of the widow, the orphan, and the stranger in your land. A foreigner who has come to live among you. And the thing that all three of those people have in common is they do not have the means or the ability to take care of themselves because they can't own land. And so the people who are unable to take care of themselves, they are worthy of extra weight, extra honor in the heart of God. Societies will often consider one or all three of those, the widow, the orphan, and the stranger, to be of almost no value. And God makes it clear they have extra value. And in the same way, he's putting parents in there as well. There's great value here. You need to give weight. You need to give honor to your mother and your father. And again, I don't want anybody here who's got a situation that just feels hurtful, harmful, complicated in any way to feel a certain pressure to follow some particular mold. But God is calling us, even in the hurt, to find ways to show honor. It matters to him. It is a reflection of his heart when we give honor to those who, for whatever reason, no longer have the ability to be thought of or known as being productive in the way that they were before. The society says that they have less value. There's a time when God says we give more value. And so we want to work through whatever it is. We want to process whatever it is and figure out a way that is safe and healthy for me, safe and healthy for them, to bring honor to each of the parents that God has in our life, because it is near and dear to his heart. Let me pray. God, and things like this, when it's complicated, I just get a little tongue-tied in my own brain. God, just protect us. Protect us from cop-outs where we feel like we get an excuse to not. But God, I also pray just to protect us from overly simplistic thinking, where we feel like we have to do something that we know isn't appropriate because someone else defined it as honor. But God, in each one of our situations with each one of the parents that we have, that we would find a way to honor you by honoring them. That God, this is close to your heart. And that God, that we would appreciate that. And God, as always, I pray that we would connect this to the gospel. That we would live like people who do not owe a debt, but who give honor where it is due. And so, God, as we do that for our parents, God, I pray that that's how we would relate to you through your son, Jesus Christ, as well. That we're paying back a debt that we owe, but we are giving honor to the one who has given us so much. And it is in his name that we pray. Amen.
thanks again for joining us on our sermon podcast, and you can learn more about us at thegrovechurch.org. And if you go to thegrovechurch.org/connect, there's a form you could fill out. Just let us know that you've been listening. And if you want to dig deeper on some of these topics that we cover in our sermon podcast, or just in other issues of dealing with culture or theology, those kinds of things, you can check out our Cultivate podcast, which is on the same feed, however you found this particular podcast. So again, this is Charlie, the lead pastor at The Grove, and thank you so much for joining us.